Sometimes, fate guides us down unexpected paths that change our lives forever. What began as a simple neighborly arrangement evolved into a story of affection, desire, and surprising twists. Step into our tale and join us on an emotional journey full of highs and lows. My name is Mary Johnson, a 65-year-old widow living in a quiet suburb just outside Boston, Massachusetts. I've been leading a peaceful, predictable life ever since my husband, John, passed away several years ago. His death left me feeling as if a piece of my soul had been torn away. Our routine, sharing a pot of coffee each morning, reading the Boston Globe headlines, suddenly became just a memory. I often found myself rereading the old love letters he had written when we were young. Those letters had once made me giggle with embarrassment. Now they brought me comfort, a link to a past that felt both distant and intensely present. My days followed an unwavering pattern: breakfast alone at the kitchen counter every morning, then tending to my rose bushes, more for my mental clarity than for their upkeep, and in the afternoons a long stroll through the local park. By the time evening came, I'd curl up with a book in my favorite armchair, though I rarely turned more than a few pages before the silent house reminded me of my solitude. In the far corner of my backyard, there's an old wooden bench where my husband and I would sit, talk, and simply be together. These days I sit there alone, murmuring hello to him, knowing there will be no answer. It's my own way of keeping him close. One hot summer day, I received a call from my good friend, Rebecca Green. Rebecca, who's known me for decades, mentioned her cousin, Tom Davis, a 25-year-old college student who had recently moved to Boston to pursue a degree in graphic design. Rebecca told me Tom was looking for a little extra work to help pay for tuition, and he'd be more than happy to clean my pool, a task I'd neglected during my busy routine. When Tom arrived that Sunday afternoon, he was a breath of fresh air against my subdued lifestyle. He had bright hazel eyes, short curly hair, and a lively smile that lit up his entire face. "Hey, Ms. Johnson, ready for a productive day?" he called out, waving confidently as he walked up my front path. We spent that day cleaning the pool, laughing about the silly childhood stories he recounted from his life back in Florida. Tom showed me some of his graphic designs on his iPad. Vibrant colors, bold lines, and an infectious enthusiasm that made me realize I had been missing the spark of creativity in my own life. "Did you ever do anything artistic yourself, Ms. Johnson?" he asked. "Well," I replied, "my late husband and I used to dabble in watercolor painting on quiet Sunday afternoons." "That's so cool," beamed. "We should paint together sometime." His offer to explore art again made me feel as though a long-lost piece of myself was being rekindled. Before he left that evening, Tom thanked me for the chance to earn a bit of cash and added, "I'll be happy to stop by any time you need help, pool cleaning or otherwise." His smile lingered even after he was gone. A few days later, Tom came over to help in the garden. I had no idea he was so skilled at pruning flowers, but he seemed to approach it with the same creativity he showed in his graphic design work. While snipping the roses, we talked about the years I'd spent here with my husband. I confided in him how I missed those simpler times, planting seeds together, watching them bloom, celebrating each new bud as if it were a miracle. Tom listened with quiet focus, occasionally asking thoughtful questions. He suggested laying out a new flower bed, something just for us to cultivate together. By the time we finished, the sun was setting, casting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. As we surveyed our work, I felt a warmth stirring inside me, something I hadn't experienced in what felt like an eternity. One afternoon we took a break on the back patio. Over iced tea and cookies, Tom told me about his family in Florida, particularly how much he missed his grandmother, who had a knack for wise insights and comforting hugs. "She taught me to appreciate the small moments in life," he said fondly, looking off into the distance. With a wistful smile, I reminisced about my husband's Sunday tradition of bringing me fresh bagels from our local bakery. I realized Tom and I shared an intangible link that bridged the decades between our ages. Over time, Tom's visits became more frequent. He'd water the plants, skim the pool, and show me sketches from his latest design assignments. We'd chat about everything from music to politics, sometimes getting lost in conversations that lasted far longer than intended. Beneath the surface of friendly chatter, a growing tension simmered, an energy neither of us acknowledged directly, but both of us felt. A few weeks later, on a warm Friday night, Tom and I found ourselves in my cozy living room with a glass of Merlot in hand. We'd spent the day reorganizing my garage and pruning the hedges. That sense of accomplishment wrapped the evening in a relaxed glow. The conversation began light, but as the second glass of wine warmed our cheeks, the mood shifted. Tom's eyes held mine a little too long, his hand occasionally brushing against my arm or my knee in a way that felt intimate rather than incidental. With every passing moment, a subtle electricity in the air became harder to ignore. Finally, he cleared his throat, turning serious. "Ms. Johnson, Mary, I've been wanting to tell you something." My heart thumped an irregular beat. "Yes, Tom." He took a deep breath. "I know there's an age difference. I know this is unorthodox. But I can't lie to myself. I'm in love with you." His words filled the room, pushing out the oxygen. I tried to speak, but the shock sealed my lips. My mind whirled, one side reminding me I was a 65-year-old widow, while the other part ached with a renewed vitality I hadn't felt in years. Tom leaned forward and brushed his lips against mine, gently at first, then with surprising passion. The following weeks were a storm of emotions, even more intense than the Boston summer thunderstorms that rattle the windows. The quiet, orderly life I'd maintained after John's death began to clash with the undeniable desire that Tom awakened in me. I often questioned myself. How is this possible? I am in the latter part of my life, but I was burning with feelings so potent they both excited and terrified me. I recalled something my mother once said. "Love is beautiful, but it must fit into your world." My confusion deepened. Did I even want it to fit into my world, or did I want to be swept away into his? Desperate for advice, I called my oldest friend, Helen, one evening. She'd known me since I was a wide-eyed teenager. "Helen," I began hesitantly, "I've met someone. He's younger." "How much younger?" I sighed. "He's 25. A thoughtful silence followed. Then in a gentle tone, Helen responded, "Mary, life's too short to worry about what other people think. But you do need to be sure about what's in your heart." Later that night, I took down an old box of photographs from the closet. Staring at a picture of my husband and me on our wedding day, I was flooded with memories. His reassuring smile, the promise in his eyes. I loved him fiercely, and I still do. A pang of guilt washed over me. Was it disloyal to feel something so profound for another man? I thought back to my husband's final days, to the moment he whispered, "I hope you find a reason to keep smiling even when I'm gone." Tears stung my eyes. Could Tom be that reason? One weekend, Tom suggested escaping the suburbs for a day trip to Lake 𝐦𝐴𝐴𝐴 in New Hampshire. "It's not too far, and the view is amazing," he said, giving me that grin that always softened my defenses. Eager for a change of scene, I agreed. We spent the afternoon swimming in the cool lake water, picnicking on the shore, and letting ourselves laugh freely. There was a certain thrill in being so open together. No neighbors whispering, no suspicious glares from the local grocery store clerk. As the day ended and the sun dipped below the tree-line, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Tom wrapped me in a gentle embrace. "Mary," he whispered into my ear, "I can't stop falling for you. I know this is complicated, but I don't care." A rush of conflicting emotions overwhelmed me. Joy, fear, longing. I held him, letting the moment linger, wishing time would freeze so I wouldn't have to face reality again. Back home, the calmness of my house felt colder than usual, and the watchful eyes of my neighbors felt harsher. A few days later, my friend Helen invited me to a small get-together at her place. The conversation, after drifting through local gossip and a few jokes, eventually circled to Tom. "Mary," Helen said gently, "people have been talking. They see Tom coming and going at all hours. They wonder what's going on." The rest of the group wore polite smiles and concerned expressions. Though they were well-meaning, their judgmental undertones stung. "It's not that I care what they think," Helen added, "but I'm worried about you getting hurt." Then there was Mr. Jenkins, my across-the-street neighbor, a retired police officer notorious for peering through his curtains. One evening, Tom mentioned that Mr. Jenkins had confronted him in the driveway with a disapproving stare. "What's that old man's problem?" Tom asked, frustrated. I could only shake my head. I knew exactly what Jenkins was thinking, that I was too old to be dallying with a young man who should be dating co-eds. The tension grew. Every stolen moment with Tom came with an undercurrent of anxiety, as if our entire neighborhood was judging us through parted blinds. As the pressure mounted, Tom and I agreed to take a step back, at least publicly. "Let's keep this between us until we figure out what we're doing," he suggested one evening over takeout pizza. The heartbreak in his eyes mirrored the weight in my chest. We tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. We continued our painting sessions, our garden projects, our chats in the living room. But the spark between us refused to be contained. One night, I came home late from volunteering at the local library. I expected to find Tom inside, perhaps working on his laptop or reading on the couch. When he wasn't there and hadn't called, unease clenched my stomach. I discovered him outside by the rose bushes, slumped on the wooden bench where my husband and I used to sit. He gazed up at the stars as though searching for answers. "Mary," he said softly when he noticed me, "I'm afraid I've let myself fall too hard." I sat beside him, my hand instinctively finding his. "Tom, maybe we both have." Silence followed, but in that silence, emotions roared. I realized our connection, as unconventional as it was, ran deeper than mere companionship. After countless heart-to-heart talks and many sleepless nights, we reached a crossroads. The societal pressures, the disapproval, my own lingering doubts, they all took a toll that neither of us could ignore. It felt like trying to hold back an ocean tide with nothing but our bare hands. In the end, I broke down. "Tom, I just can't do this," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "I love our time together, but I can't keep fighting what everyone thinks or what I think of myself. I feel disloyal to John, and uncertain about a future we could never really share without constant judgment." Tears streamed down Tom's face as he pulled me into his arms. "I understand," he murmured. "I wish things could be different." We decided to part ways. My heart felt as though it was splitting in two, the guilt and heartbreak intermingling with relief that the constant strain might end. In the days that followed, I found the house emptier than ever. I missed Tom's laughter echoing in the hallways, the smell of fresh coffee he would bring from the local cafe, the artistic chaos of his sketchbooks scattered around my living room. But as much as it hurt, I told myself it was the right choice. One rainy afternoon a few weeks after our breakup, my phone buzzed. It was Tom, his voice trembling with panic. He'd been in a car accident, nothing life-threatening, but he was hurt, scared, and alone. Without hesitation, I grabbed my purse, rushed out into the downpour, and drove straight to the hospital. When I saw him in the hospital room, his arm in a sling, bruises on his forehead, my heart lurched. All of my doubts, my fears, my guilt faded in the face of simple human care. Over the next few weeks, I helped him recover, making sure he had hot meals and a reassuring presence. We spoke about our feelings, our regrets, and about what might still be possible between us. Ultimately, we agreed to scale our bond down to a deep, supportive friendship, one free from the pressure of prying neighbors or the weight of an undefined romance. It wasn't an ideal solution. It felt more like a fragile truce we made with ourselves to keep each other in our lives in some way. During Tom's convalescence, an unexpected sense of acceptance washed over me. I realized love doesn't always fit neatly into boxes. Sometimes it comes into our lives just to show us we can still grow, still feel, still hope. Weeks later, I noticed the flowers Tom and I had planted earlier that summer were in full bloom. Their vibrant colors, pinks, yellows, and oranges, seemed to celebrate life itself. Watering them one evening, I recalled Tom's grin as we tilled the soil and how, in those moments, I felt more alive than I had in years. We sat together on the bench one day. Tom, still recovering, me with my journal in hand, letting the serene buzz of cicadas fill the silence. "Mary," he said quietly, "I'm grateful for everything we shared. You've shown me what genuine connection really is. I smiled, blinking away the tears. And you've reminded me that there's life beyond grief. You've helped me rediscover parts of myself I thought were buried with John. Leaves were beginning to turn golden, a sign that autumn was coming. I felt a profound peace, if also a lingering sense of what could have been. Yet I was oddly content, knowing we had navigated something remarkable, even if it didn't result in a traditional happily ever after. I wrote in my journal, "Sometimes fate leads us down the most unexpected roads. Along these paths, we rediscover the hidden pieces of ourselves, and that can be the greatest gift of all." Psychological insights. The story of Mary and Tom highlights the complexity of human relationships and the emotions that arise from unconventional connections. From a psychological perspective, several key points stand out. Self-reflection and emotional intelligence. Understanding one's own feelings is crucial. Mary initially dismissed her attraction as a passing phase, but deeper reflection revealed a genuine connection. Tom had to confront his own preconceived notions about love and age, learning to identify what his heart truly wanted. Boundaries and communication. Clear boundaries prevent misunderstandings and emotional turmoil. Although Mary and Tom tried to talk openly, the tension in their situation made honest communication a challenge. Learning to articulate needs and fears can help mitigate the emotional risks when a relationship faces societal disapproval. Social pressures and self-acceptance. Society often imposes rules about what is or isn't acceptable, especially concerning age gaps in relationships. Mary felt torn between her love for Tom and the fear of judgment. Genuine self-acceptance sometimes requires distancing oneself from external expectations, focusing instead on personal values and well-being. Emotional support and professional help. During emotionally turbulent times, reaching out to friends, family, or mental health professionals can be beneficial. Therapy could have provided Mary and Tom with coping strategies and clarity. Honest, supportive conversations, like the ones Mary shared with her friend Helen, are vital in navigating complicated romantic dynamics. Recommendations for similar life situations. Open, honest communication. Encourage candid discussions about expectations, fears, and desires. This can help both parties understand each other's perspectives and reduce misunderstandings. Establish boundaries. Make clear what each person is comfortable with. Whether the relationship is romantic, platonic, or somewhere in between, defining boundaries helps maintain emotional stability. Prioritize self-care. Engage in activities that promote mental well-being like journaling, meditation, or physical exercise. Personal fulfillment should not be sacrificed for a relationship. Seek professional guidance. If the situation feels overwhelming, consider therapy or counseling. A neutral third party can offer strategies to manage anxiety, guilt, and societal pressure. Embrace change and adaptation. Life is dynamic, and changes, whether welcome or unwelcome, are inevitable. Accepting and adapting to these changes can lead to growth, even if the outcome isn't what you initially expected. Mary and Tom's journey demonstrates how unexpected feelings can upend even the most predictable lives. Their story underscores the importance of introspection, transparent communication, and courage in navigating love that defies societal norms. Sometimes, the best resolution isn't a neat conclusion. It's the lessons learned along the way. Ultimately, living authentically, acknowledging and honoring our deepest emotions, offers a path to fulfillment that surpasses the fear of judgment. Life can be as vibrant and full of possibility as a summer garden in bloom, if we're open to nurturing those small, fragile seeds of connection when they appear.